from some mates on a crypto chat. So I thought I'd try to explain clearly why this is a bad idea, why one of these commas anyway is a bad idea. And if you followed some of these classes, you might already be able to guess which comma it is, or maybe you'll be able to guess it from instinct anyway. So the problem with this comma is that with this comma here as well, it kind of looks like this is just an interruption. Yeah, a lot of people say we need commas for interruptions, and it's true, you do use commas for any kind of interrupting. You could do it with an interrupting adverb, an interrupting subordinate clause, which is what this is. You could do it with an interrupting participle phrase. Really, anything can interrupt, and a positive interrupts as well, and so anything can interrupt. But if you have got an interruption, and it really is an interruption, then the sentence ought to make sense when you take out the interruption. And if you look at it, it doesn't really make much sense when you take out this when I do. So for this reason, it's definitely not an interruption. Let's read it. I don't often read Zimbabwean news, but it's always Bulawayo. Now, that's weird to say I don't often read Zimbabwean news, but it's always Bulawayo news. It doesn't sound very normal. You wouldn't put those two main clauses together like that. You wouldn't say I don't often read Zimbabwean news, but it is always Bulawayo. It sounds odd. And for that reason, this when I do, it's a subordinate clause, but it's not interrupting. Okay, so if we take this comma out, it actually reads a lot better. I don't often read Zimbabwean news, but when I do, it's always Bulawayo. Nonetheless, I would add that you could have put the comma here, and this one would have made a lot more sense, although I do agree that it's unnecessary in this sentence because it's a really short sentence. But this is a main clause. Yeah. Now, what do I mean by a main clause? I just mean a sentence in itself. You could put a full stop here and it would be correct. I don't often read Zimbabwean news. That's a full sentence, so it's a main clause. And the second main clause is actually here. It's always Bulawayo. You could just have that part all on its own as a sentence, just like it's always hot is a sentence, or he is always right is a sentence. It is always Bulawayo news, because I know this is a news website. That's a full sentence. And this is what's joining the two full sentences together, this word but. Now, these words are important. They're called the fanboys words, and it's a good name because it's just an abbreviation for, and, nor, but, there's your but, or, yet, and so. And these are the only 7 words that join together main clauses in English. Yeah, they're the only 7 words that do so. So it's worth remembering those words. And really, and, or, and but are the 3 main ones. And so, sorry, and, or, but, and so are the 4 main ones. I think for is very literary, yeah, because this is a for only when you have a main clause after it. So it's not 4 5 years or for you, which is a different part of speech, but it's for I was very hot. Yeah. So I took off my jumper for I was very hot. I think it sounds quite odd in modern English. We don't often say that. We don't use for in speech, but you do read it in literature. Anyway, they're the only 7 words that can join these 2 main clauses together. And when you do so, you can use a comma. So that one it is up to you, because if the main clauses are very short, you don't need to. But usually in literature, the main clauses tend to be very long, and so you do see the comma before the fanboys word, so before the but. Yeah, so that's possible. Now, what about this comma? Why is that one there? Well, again, if you learn a few other conjunctions, this is a coordinating conjunction. It's one of the 7 coordinating conjunctions, and there they are. And coordinating conjunction means I join main clauses. That's all I want you to understand that it means. Whereas there's another type of conjunction, and when is one of these. It's called a subordinating conjunction. And subordinate clauses, which are just incomplete thoughts, yeah, subordinate clauses, they're incomplete thoughts with a subject and a verb as the main elements. I'm just going to put sub actually because it's clearer for me. When you start the sentence, when you have let's say this, when you have a subordinate clause before a main clause, it is tradition to put a comma between the two. So I write this as just a sub, comma, main. But what's well worth learning in this rule are all the subordinating conjunctions, because when is a word that always is followed by a subject and a verb. Yeah, when we go to school, when I read the newspaper, when he knocked on the door. It's always got a subject, he, and then a verb, knocked. And when you think about it, it's always followed by an incomplete thought. And that's why we call it a subordinating conjunction. It joins an incomplete thought, when I do, to a complete thought. It's always Bulawayo. And so it's well worth memorizing these subordinating conjunctions. There are quite a few of them, but they will help you with punctuating your sentences. You can go online and find, a list of these, but they all, when you think about it, all of these words are always followed by a subject and a verb. Yeah, when I go to school, while I was away, whereas he likes beer. Yeah, because I didn't know where to go. Yeah, as I was hot, since I was hungry. Yeah, all of these words. If I win £1 million, yeah, all of these words are subordinating conjunctions. And if you see them at the start of the sentence, you already know you need a comma when you get to the end of that complete thought. But even if you see them in the middle of the sentence, like this one, you know you need a comma to divide, to separate the main clause from the subordinate clause. So the way you look out for this comma is by looking out for the subordinating conjunctions. It's the easiest way to see it, although you could just say, well, that's an incomplete thought. Okay, so I hope that comma has made things clear, because it should help you understand why we actually don't usually put the comma before the when. If we do, then it sounds like when I do is an interruption, and that's not what it is at all. You can take it out and see for yourself that you wouldn't say, I don't often read Zimbabwean news, but it's always Bulawayo. It sounds odd. So it's not an interruption. Somebody's just asked, can the word but be at the beginning of a sentence? Yes, it can. All of the fanboys can be at the beginning of a sentence. There's nothing wrong with that. And all of the subordinating conjunctions can be at the beginning of the sentence. There's nothing wrong with that. You can start a sentence with an and. You can start a sentence with because. All of those ideas are just myths. And I think they're just very often taught to youngsters to try to get them to stop starting every sentence with an and, or a but, or a because. But no, it's certainly not the case that you can't. You certainly can start a sentence with but, or and, or because, and you can look in any book to prove that point, because all books start, all writers occasionally start a sentence with a conjunction. Okay, so thanks everybody for watching that. I hope that's been clear. And I'll be putting this up on my Telegram group later. So do make sure that you come over to that channel. Otherwise, you will be missing out on stuff. Okay, thanks everybody for watching, and I hope to see you.